Okay, so you've probably heard that laws are written in plain English. But have you ever really stopped to wonder how judges figure out what those words actually mean when things get tricky? Well, today, we're cracking open the Judicial Toolkit to see exactly how they do it.
You'd think it would be simple, right? A law is just a bunch of instructions. But here's the thing. Words can be incredibly slippery. The same word can mean different things to different people. And that's where all the interesting legal battles begin. It's the whole reason courts have to get involved in the first place.
So when a judge looks at a law, what we call a statute, they're doing way more than just reading. Their main job, their number one goal, is to figure out what the heck the lawmakers were trying to do when they wrote it. This is often called finding the intention of Parliament, getting back to the original purpose behind the text.
Now, to find that original intention, judges don't just, guess. They have a whole toolkit of rules and principles that have been built up over centuries to guide them. And today, we're going to pull out the 4 most important tools in that kit and see how they work.
All right, let's start with the first tool. This is the most basic one, the foundation for everything else. It's called the literal rule.
The idea here is really straightforward. A court should just take the words of the law at face value. No creative interpretations. No looking for hidden meanings. If the text says cats, it means cats. Simple as that. The judge's job is just to apply the words exactly as they're written.
And just how strict is this rule? Well, a judge way back in 1851 said it all. The court is bound to use the ordinary meaning of the words, even though it lead to an absurdity. Just think about that for a second. Even if the result seems totally ridiculous or unjust, the literal text is king.
And of course, that leads us to the million-dollar question. What on earth happens when following the letter of the law leads to a conclusion that makes absolutely no sense? Surely the law can't be an instrument for absurdity. There has to be something else in the toolkit for that, right? And there is. This brings us right to our second tool, which is designed to fix the problems created by the first one. It's called the Golden Rule, and you can think of it as a kind of judicial safety valve.
So, here's the crucial part. The Golden Rule basically says, okay, if the literal rule leads to a crazy, absurd outcome, the judge can step in. It allows them to tweak or modify the language just enough to get to a result that actually makes common sense. It's a pragmatic fix for when the first tool breaks.
Looking at them side by side, you can really see how they work as a team. The literal rule is totally rigid. It's all about the text, the whole text, and nothing but the text. The Golden Rule, on the other hand, is flexible. Its main job is to avoid nonsense. So it's a two-step dance. You always start with the literal meaning, but you keep that Golden Rule in your back pocket, just in case. Okay, so far we've been focused on the words on the page. Now we're going to shift gears and get into the more advanced tools. The ones that are less about the text and more about the reason a law was ever written in the first place.
This is where judges put on their detective hats. The mischief rule asks them to travel back in time and figure out what specific problem, or mischief as they called it, the old law wasn't solving. What was the gap that Parliament was trying to plug by passing this new law?
And this isn't just guesswork. It's a very structured process based on a famous case from 1584. Judges ask these 4 specific questions. By answering them, they try to put themselves in the shoes of the original lawmakers. Once they understand the historical problem, they can interpret the law in a way that actually fixes that original mischief.
Now, this whole idea of looking for a law's original purpose was a real game changer. And that same core principle, the idea of looking beyond the literal words on the page, has evolved into the most powerful and, frankly, the most common tool judges use today.
And that evolution leads us straight to our final and most influential tool, the purpose of rule.
The purpose of rule is the big picture approach. It's like the mischief rule's modern supercharged cousin. It doesn't just ask about the specific problem, it asks what is the overall spirit of this law? What larger goal was Parliament trying to achieve? This lets judges interpret the law in a way that makes sure it achieves its objective, even as our world changes.
So we've got our 4 tools: literal, golden, mischief, and purposive. But here's the kicker. The choice of which tool to use in a given case is a massive decision, and it has very, very real consequences. The purposive rule, in particular, creates this delicate balancing act. On the one hand, it's an amazing tool for justice. It lets laws adapt and stay relevant. But on the other hand, it gives judges a huge amount of power. And critics worry that it blurs the line between interpreting the law, which is their job, and making the law, which is supposed to be Parliament's job. And that's really the key takeaway here. This isn't just some dusty legal theory. The rule a judge decides to use can determine the outcome of a huge business deal, define the scope of our personal rights, and shape our daily lives in ways we don't even realize. It affects all of us.
Which leaves us with this one final, massive question that sits at the very heart of our legal system. When judges interpret a law, are they more like archaeologists, carefully digging up a meaning that was already there? Or are they more like artists, shaping and creating a meaning that fits the world we live in today? The real answer? Well, it's somewhere inside that judicial toolkit. Thanks for watching.